Good evening. This is our fourth show. My name is Tank Nelson. The show is called Let's Talk. If you want to get hold of us, or well, if you want to get hold of me, you can go up on email, and it's tanknelson@earthlink.net. That's Tank Nelson, one word, earthlink.net. Yes, I'll get the message, and we'll come back and we'll talk, or we'll do whatever you want to do. Now you can call the station, and they have a email also. That's 1340 KYNS.com. It's as simple as that. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. Anybody'd love to hear from you. In radio, it's difficult to know what somebody thinks. In a second, and it's only going to be a few seconds, I'm going to talk about how I got involved with Air America. But like all shows that are on once a week, in between, lots of stuff happens. And part of this, I want to tell you about part of it because it tickles me. I was home. I was talking to my wife, Terry, and I was chuckling because she was saying, on the air, the things you're talking about, I've heard a lot before. It's like any husband and wife, you hear the stories over and over. And she wasn't being critical, but she was trying to be helpful. She was talking about something that happened on the second show. Well, I'd been at Spencer's Market in Morro Bay buying some stuff and walking through the market. Now this is the fun of radio. Well, it's the fun of being around, but it's certainly the fun of radio. Spencer's Market, I go at least once a day. I love going to the market. I do all the cooking at my house, so I go to the market a lot. Now I'm in the market and I'm cruising through with my basket and and hello and how are yous. And Monica in the deli hollers over, Tank. And I wasn't going to the deli, but I went over, and she says, the radio show. She says, that part about movies, how they're made or how they get made or how they don't get made, she says, nobody ever talks about that. That was terrific. I brought my husband. I got him to come in and listen to it. So, I'm talking to this charming young woman, and she's telling me how much she enjoyed stuff that I did on the air. Now, I can't tell you. I can tell you. That is really, for a guy that likes to talk and a guy that likes radio, that is really slick stuff. Anyway, I go buy this, buy that, whatever, and I'm going out to the check stand. I'm on the way out the door. Jim, the manager, hollers over, hey, Tank. So I actually left the cart outside because I was almost out the door. I went back, and it was the same subject. He says, the thing about making movies, he says, he actually used the word fascinating. Now, I've been around movies all my life, in many forms. And I think it's fascinating. It's just that you don't hear it talked about a lot, how they come about being done. But in this case, and here's where the fun is, I'm on the radio, and here's two people in Spencer's Market in Morro Bay that hear the show and want to talk about it. Now, again, I can't tell you how much fun this is, but it is big fun. One other thing. Now, that's telling you how good it was or how fun it was or whatever. Somebody called me to tell me that on the first show, which is where I was talking about that Magnificent Seven, they called me to tell me that I said Leonard Bernstein when it was actually Elmer Bernstein. Now, I've got the CD, and I'll go back and play it again to be sure, but I'm going to take their word for it. I could easily, I don't work with a script. So easily I could have said Leonard out of my head. I mean, I know of both of them, but it was Elmer for Magnificent Seven. We'll get that straightened out. Now, we're going to go back to Air America. It came up. Why am I here? Why am I on this show? Why am I doing this show called Let's Talk? Well, it actually goes back quite a ways. This station, I think it was a couple of years ago, became Air America. That Air America was forming, and I don't know the business of radio, and I don't know the context of radio and that type of thing. But it was forming. Well, I love the idea that there was, they call it progressive radio now, but I love the idea that there was alternative to the right-wing talk radio, which is really dominant. I mean, if you drive up and down the Pacific Coast, well, you drive anywhere, but if you drive up and down Pacific Coast, you go up and down your dial, you'll find out very quickly that the conservative radio is a strong business, big business, strong business, comes at you from many angles, everywhere from the hysterical side of it, like Ann Coulter, to, some commerce sides that are, I don't even know what the commerce sides, I'm trying to think of somebody that would be more conservative, but that doesn't make any difference. But the progressive side, the liberal side, whatever you want to call it. Here's Air America. Now, I'm a retired longshoreman, a lifelong Democrat, and we may even get to that in this show, but we'll see. But that's what I am. Now, here I am at my turn on the radio station, 1340, and here's somebody talking about what I believe, what I feel, what I'm excited about, what I care about. Well, I'm listening, and, it's brand new, and a neighbor hears about it, we're talking. Well, in this, it came to me that the elections were coming up. This would be 2004. The elections are coming up. And it's tight. I mean, the race for the presidency is tight. I, of course, want the Democratic side to win. I've contributed a little money. I mean, I don't have big checks, so I don't, they don't invite me to their top line parties. But I'll send money to a candidate if I think it would help. Well, we're going along doing this, and it struck me one day. I had no idea what it cost. I came over here. We're by the airport. The station is by the airport. At that time, I had never been here. I came over, walked in, and I talked to the lady that heads the station. And I asked her, what would it cost to talk on the air for 1 minute? She gave me a figure. I thought, do I want to write a check for that amount of money so that I could talk? Well, basically, I'd be talking to you. I mean, this was a couple of years ago. I'd be talking to you. I thought about the money. I thought about doing it. You got to stand up to a microphone and talk. So I said, it's a deal. We made a deal for how many shows and how often it would play. I went home, got out my yellow pad. I work on yellow pads. I also write a newspaper column. That's how I write those also. But I got out my yellow pad and I tried to figure out what I would say in 60 seconds if I could talk about the Democratic side, the liberal side, what I believe is the correct side. So I wrote this, and I wrote and more writing, more crossing out, I write longhand, scratch it out, look at it again. Well, finally, I had a couple of pages that I thought made reasonable sense. And what it was about was why people should vote. I mean, I will tell you straight out, I didn't vote every time I could. I should have, and I feel bad that I didn't. Like so many things, we feel bad as we get older. We feel bad at what we didn't do when we were younger. That was part of my feeling. I had missed a chance to vote, and voting as I got older, and I realized that my children, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have a great-grandchild. So I realized they're going to inherit my world, the world that I was part of making for them. They're going to inherit it. I should make a bigger effort to make that world better for them. So I wrote the check for the time. I wrote down what I wanted to say. And it was all about voting, not about how you should vote or who you should vote for. I didn't figure that was my place. But what it was said in that 60 seconds was, get out and vote. It was simple. It wasn't hard. It wasn't complicated. But I'd stand I have a little workshop den, whatever you want. We call it the hole. I stood down there and I would read this thing off the yellow pad and watch the clock. And when I thought it was about 60 seconds, I came back to the station, talked to the lady that runs it, and she put me in with an engineer. We put up a microphone just like same room where I'm sitting now. We put up a microphone. The guy gave me the countdown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pointed to me, and I read it off this paper. Now, by chance or by luck, whatever you want to call it, we got it on the first take. Well, it played. It played out there. I'd be driving along, going off for coffee in the morning, and there I would. This is, this one at the end of it says, this is Tank Nelson. I live in Morro Bay. I'd listen to this thing, and they put Arlo Guthrie, anyway, this land is your land. Put it behind it. It was terrific. I mean, not because I was doing it, but the music behind it really was a nice touch, nice emphasis. The fellow's name was Marty, and he slipped. I mean, he didn't tell me what he's going to do. I did the tape or the whatever they put it on, the computer, and I walked out of the station, and he put this music behind it. It starts out, and it ends up with that. And I'm driving along thinking, well, that was, yeah, I mean, it's my voice, and I did it, and I paid for it, but I thought, I was so excited about being involved in the process, and I was hoping that I was hoping that people would listen. And I don't mean vote any. I didn't say I was anything other than I was. I mean, if I'm on Air America, I must probably be a liberal, which is a very nice word if you take it from the right direction. But I was going along in this vein. Time passed. Well, there was also another thing. I walked into my dermatologist one day. And I was sitting in the room, actually. I'd gone through the process where they put you in the room and you wait. Well, I was sitting there. She comes in. She's got a darling smile on her face. And she says, my star. And I had no idea what she was talking about. Well, it turns out that she's a big fan of Air America. I had no idea at that point. I mean, she looked at my skin and burned this and burned that and set me on my way and that type of thing. But she's a fan. She's a fan of Air America, and she says, "You're my star. I heard you on the thing." Well, now you can see, imagine what fun it is to be sitting there with this darling lady that's going to burn something off your forehead or your arm or whatever, and she's heard you on the radio. That's how cool. Yeah, that's exactly the word. I love the word cool, but that's how cool it is to be on the radio. Say something that is, yeah, well, you got to say something that's reasonably bright. You can't just babble, although I do that at times. But that's what it's like. The radio is like. That's what Air America is like. Now, to update that, some time went by, and I was so excited about. Yeah, excited is a word. I was so excited about what took place. I decided to write another check, which I did. Wrote another check. Talked to the head. Back to Marty. Back to the thing. We did it again. Now, I don't think the second one was as good as the first one. The first one, I was so passionate about what I was talking about that it just poured out. I guess it poured out correctly. The second one, I was trying to explain something, and it was okay. I mean, people heard it. People said it was good, but I didn't care for it as much. I mean, it was probably my fault. I was maybe too nervous. Who knows? Who knows when you're doing radio what's going to come out? But it went out there and it played and it played. It was very, very nice. Now, again, we're going to pass some time here because we went back 2 years. We're bringing it up to now. A couple of months ago, now I had experience. I had, you can write a check and be, and you can be on the air. Well, and I'm telling you, it's not that I can write so many checks. It's just that I like it. It's fun. It's interesting, and it's, well, you could call it spreading the word. So I was thinking about a couple of things. I was thinking about Air America. I mean, I listen to it when I'm in the car, particularly. I listen to all the shows, the Randy Rhoads, Al Franken, the whole crew. I like the lady in the morning. Wait a minute. I'm gonna ask Drew. Lady in the morning.
Rachel or
Stephanie.
Stephanie?
Stephanie. Yeah. Pardon me for not picking everything, but Stephanie. I was in L.A. about a month ago, driving down the freeway. And she was doing, of course, the Air America's everywhere. Down there, it's on 1150. But I picked it up coming in. But they were doing something about, had to do with Kiss, the rock group. I got laughing so hard. I mean, that wasn't political. They were just having a good time early in the morning. It was after 7. But I was laughing so hard that I thought I better get off the freeway because it's like I was talking on the phone. I was so involved in the show that I wasn't, I did all right, and the skit was over, and I slowed down laughing, and I was driving correctly again, and I drove on into San Pedro, which was my destination. But again, radio is, well, it's just plain cool. From that, I decided to write another check. I came over and talked and said, "Could we do this?" And they said, "Yeah, that would be fine." Well, in this case, there is an absolute darling bookstore in Morro Bay. It's a little bookstore. You could put it in the corner of any of the big ones. I mean, you could put it in the coffee shop of the big ones. But it's a little bookstore in Morro Bay. It's been there a long time. Red brick building. I mean, can you imagine a red brick building with flowers out in front? It's right out of Norman Rockwell. But when you go through the door, when you walk in, it's called Colette Bookstore. And when you walk through the door, the floor is wood. Now, I'm 73. I go back a long ways. Lots of stores, when I was a kid, I'm talking big department stores, like what would be the equivalent of Sears and Roebuck's, I guess. In my town, which was San Pedro, lots of towns had wooden floors. Now, wooden floors have a particular, not a bad aroma, but a particular aroma because wood picks up scents and holds onto them, and they build. It's like a what do they call it, a patina on a surface. They hold this, and it's an absolute charming aroma because, like so many smells, your mind flashes back. I mean, when I walk into Colette's bookstore, and it's not strong. You actually have to think about it. You have to wonder about it because you could easily pass it up. You have to think wood. You have to think aroma. And maybe there's even a correlation between what you're thinking and what you think you smell because your memory goes back to all the different floors, whether they use pine sol or whether they use wax or whatever but wood carries this aroma forward. Anyway, you walk in Colette's And the people in Collette's bookstore in Morro Bay they're as charming as the outside. They're as charming as the wooden floor. I mean, they've been there a long time. They care. They like to talk. I mean, can you imagine going up to one of the big stores and saying, well, listen, with people say, let's chat about this book that I'm buying. They'd look at you like you were nuts. In Colette, you could talk about the book as long as you want to. You might have to move over a little bit to let somebody pay, but you can talk. Now, that's the bookstore and the type of bookstore and the type of reading I really care about. So I go on the air. I've got 60 seconds. I talk about Air America because that's where we are and I like it. Then I shift into the bookstore and I do a little about this bookstore. But also in this bookstore, I have a favorite author called Robert Parker, who writes the Spencer series. I don't know if you know about it. Big time seller. He's written 58 books, so he's a hot dog. Good writer. He's a good writer. Plus, he's a terrific storyteller. I mean, the kind of book you can read in 2 hours and be thrilled and be sorry it's over. That kind of writer. But one of my favorite of all, it's not a Spencer. I love his Spencer books, but it's not a Spencer book. But it was written way back it was in the 70s, and it was called Wilderness. And it's just a plain clever story. I've read it 3 or 4 times over the years. Never get tired. I mean, it's like a good movie. You never get tired of it. So when I was going to talk about Colette on the radio, I said, maybe you want to order a few of these books because somebody might come in. Well, Air America must have a pretty good shot because people did come in and they did buy Wilderness. And I mean, there was paperback. It was like $8 or whatever it is. Well, they sold books and people came and people ordered. They ran out of the ones they ordered. They ordered some more. Well, there was this nice little flow. Well, then in the Tribune, this is a month or so ago, in the Tribune, somebody had called Colette and asked for their book list of what they'd sold. Well, there it is in the Tribune. There's a list. And Catherine Jordan's book, Hot Water, which we also have, Terry got it. I'm about to read it. But Hot Water was at the top of the list. But number five on their list of sales was Wilderness by Robert Parker. Now, I'm out here. I'm reading in the Tribune. I've sat here and realized that this is before I had the show. This is months ago. By talking on the radio about a book and talking on Air America about a book, that this bookstore in Morro Bay, this very small bookstore with, of course, charming people, what they had sold, and I think it turned out to be 16. I believe that's the number, somewhere in there. But they sold 16 of these books, and it was number 5 on their list that month. And that's the power of radio. That's the power of having fun. I mean, I get to talk about Air America, which I really liked. I get to talk about Colette's bookstore, which I really like. And I get to talk about Robert Parker, who I really like. 60 seconds, and 16 books are sold. I mean, I can't. I mean, this is a book that is 30 years old. And so there is some really good stuff happening out there. Earlier in the show, I was talking about Spencer's Market the same way. There's lots of stuff that touches on lots of stuff. And my assumption is the show is going to go on. We'll be, as the name of the show, Let's Talk. We'll be talking a lot about a lot of stuff. Now, I'm sitting here behind the mic. As I mentioned, this is the same room, same mic when I was doing these 3 commercials. The time slot that you're listening to now came up. The lady that runs the station talked to the fellow that's the producer at the station, and they said, why don't we ask this guy if he'd like to do this? They did. I said, yes. Here we are. I could reach down into my, if I had a thesaurus, I would go into it and try and find the word that would describe I'm going to use the word excitement. The excitement of driving here every day. I come over from Morro Bay, drive along. I'm listening to the station. Today I was listening to Al Franken as I came over. He was talking to David Brock. I'm driving along, and these 2 fellows that are talking about very serious subject. I mean, what happens in our government, who represents us, is a very serious subject no matter how you slice it, particularly in its current circumstances. Lots of stuff happening that we should be terribly interested in. We should be talking, calling, writing, depending on where you stand. Now, if you're listening to a station, you probably stand with pretty close to where I stand. But we have to, and this is going off of Frank and Brock's conversation. It's maybe even imperative. That's a heavy word, but it's also true. We should be talking, writing, discussing the fact of what's going on in our country. That's I didn't mean to get that heavy. I was just talking about that I'm watching. From that, I'm driving along, listen to Frank, and I'm driving by the airport on the north side. We're on the south side. And the beat starts to come to me because in a few minutes, I'm going to walk through a door. Drew's going to come around. We're going to be sitting in the room across from where we broadcast, and we're going to say, what are we going to talk about? We're going to have a little conversation. And somewhere in minutes, Drew's going to point to me, and this mic will be live, and I'll be talking to you. Now, that takes some getting used to. It takes a little. I mean, I have a tendency to talk quickly when I get excited. I get excited when I talk. There was an old. I heard it on some station somewhere. They said singing is no more than talking slowly. I'd never heard that before. I heard this is last year. I thought, well, wait a minute. Is that correct? I mean, I've never heard the statement before. So I started listening to music, and with that in mind, are singers just talking slowly? Well, it turns out, I guess except for rapping, it's pretty true. I mean, I like the old music. I like big band music, and where you can hear the lyrics. I mean, Sinatra, Peggy Lee, Judy Garland. Big fan of Judy Garland's, and they do. It doesn't seem like it if you don't think about it, but they do talk, or they sing slowly, talk slowly. Well, I would like to learn to talk slowly, or slower, but keeping track. You also have to keep track. Radio without a script, without somebody to talk to. I mean, eventually we're going to have guests, and I assume eventually we'll have call-ins. But this is getting off the ground kind of thing. This is you're going to build the experimental boat and see if it floats. That's kind of what we're doing here. It's a lovely experiment for me. Now, that said, that was a long roll right there. I want to get back to something we were talking earlier. I mentioned that I was a longshoreman. Let's say be easy. People have asked me, well, how do I get to talk on the radio? Why do I get to talk on the radio? Well, I kind of explained the first part, but the other thing is you have to bring something to it. In my case, and I'll tell you this because I'm giving you a bit of a resume here. Being a longshoreman, I started in 1951 as a longshoreman, worked 44 years, retired, and then in the last 3 years, I happened to have written a biography about a guy. So I'm a longshoreman that's written a book. Now I have a newspaper column, and there's other stories, but the two things right there, longshoreman and written a book. One of the things, again, that tickles me. Now, when I put this person in the conversation, remember, I'm not even close to the same league. I'm a single A ball player, and we're talking about maybe a Babe Ruth type. Eric Hoffer, a writer, philosopher, big in the 60s, probably big in the 70s, but like many people that have people have written great things. Time is a tough element, especially if you pass on. But when Eric Hoffer, who won the Pulitzer, was writing what he wrote, as far, let's say he wrote the four books that are well known. And Pulitzer, books well known, both longshoremen, both write books. It's exciting, it's fun, it's interesting, and I get a chance to talk to you right here tonight. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to bring forward. That this Let's Talk thing is just, it's just, I'm struggling for words, but it's just a thrill to be involved, it's a thrill to be with you. I'm very admitting, I don't know how many of you are out there, but it's exciting. And that's what I'm going to get to. Now we're going to wrap this up, and music's going to be playing, and we're going to go out, and this show will be over. And I hope you had a wonderful time, and I certainly did. And I'll see you next week.